Kingdom Hearts is an odd duck. If you're somehow unaware of the series, it's an action JRPG that mixes classical Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters with the OC of a man who desperately wanted to make anime. But despite all that, Kingdom Hearts has done ridiculously well. While yes, it's an inherently strange idea, especially when you learn originally you were going to play as a lion-human hybrid with a chainsaw, real thing. But there was nothing like it on the PS2 or anywhere else for that matter. Kingdom Hearts sold more units than Metal Gear Solid 3. You know, the best one according to everyone but me. The overwhelming success of Kingdom Hearts meant only one thing: sequel, baby! Well, first there was a director's cut with additional content in Japan, but then sequel, baby! So you better believe people were excited to play the much awaited follow-up to Kingdom Hearts on the PS2. What was that? On the Game Boy Advance. Yeah, little did we know this would be the beginning of a very annoying trend where the series would put lore-heavy games on seemingly random handhelds. Now, as you can see from the title of the video, we're only discussing Kingdom Hearts 2, not memories of wasted time. But for the illusion of fairness, what actually happened in that game? So, Sora visits the castle from Symphony of Night, kills a few Matrix cosplayers with great hair, slowly gets amnesia, and plays some Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh yeah, Riku was in this game, I guess. Now personally, I don't mind Chain of Memories, it's fine, but fine isn't exactly good enough for a follow-up to the 10th best-selling game on the best-selling console of all time. But it's probably not even possible to follow up on what was essentially an isolated moment of madness. It's not like you could take what made Kingdom Hearts work and somehow improve on it, and it's not like I'm recycling a bit from my remake video because I don't know what to write here. So full disclosure, Kingdom Hearts 2 may be a perfect sequel. Now, when I say perfect sequel, I don't mean Kingdom Hearts 2 is a perfect game, cause it's not. However, I feel it does everything the original game does better both mechanically and narratively. Now, because I'll be talking about different aspects of the game, I'll break the video down into sections so you can jump to the things you wish at your leisure, cause I'm just that nice. First things first, let's talk about why the Kingdom Hearts 2 opening is way better than people give it credit for.
What? You didn't even have me, oh my god!
If you know anything about Kingdom Hearts 2, it's that people hate the opening. You know what? They're right to, because it's very slow and confusing and a little bit boring. But the opening hours to Kingdom Hearts 2 are very important, both in terms of function and story. One thing I never really see people talk about is how drastically the combat in Final Fantasy is changed between games. Unless it's a direct sequel, the combat is completely different from entry to entry, and even sometimes, even when they're direct sequels, they're completely different. I mentioned this as Kingdom Hearts is a Final Fantasy spin-off and maintains the trend of overhauling the gameplay in each game. Yes, they are all JRPGs, but no two play exactly the same. The difference is Kingdom Hearts 2 realizes how jarring the difference is and starts things slow. Roxas has that same weighty feel as Sora in the first game, but it introduces you to the reaction commands and how fast-paced the combat is now. However, in terms of the narrative, the opening serves as a great reintroduction to the world. If you weren't able to play the GBA title, you had waited 3 years between games, and the Roxas prologue acts as a great refresher. Roxas's opening bears a striking resemblance to the opening of Kingdom Hearts 1. Idealistic boy living a quiet, peaceful life, encounters strange beings, and a shadowy figure that seems to have sinister intent, and both characters gain access to the Keyblade. The major difference is that every time Roxas's life becomes abnormal or inconvenient, the world pivots to correct these inconsistencies, because plot twist for a game released in 2005, Roxas's life is a lie and his friends are fake, and this is all a simulation. Turns out the reason we've spent the last 2 hours as not Sora is cause Sora is in a coma. Roxas is the missing part he needs to wake up because they're technically the same person, so Roxas has to die so Sora can wake up and save the world. Coincidentally, he's also killed off just as he was getting interesting and as we the audience were beginning to like him. The worst part of all this, Roxas is just forgotten for the rest of the game. Seriously, once Roxas makes his big sacrifice, this is the next scene. Yeah, the game did just put a super lighthearted moment right after the death of the character we just spent the last 2 hours with. Dark. Now, this is a common thread that KH2 will follow for the rest of the game. However, the depressing aspects of Kingdom Hearts 2 are more background dressing than center stage. Roxas getting gaslit by Morpheus is only the first taste. He also recontextualizes the main character of the first game, much like Raiden in Metal Gear Solid 2, but I'd argue Kingdom Hearts 2 does a better job than MGS2. The context Roxas sees Sora in is the villain. Everything bad happening to Roxas is indirectly Sora's fault. Roxas was just trying to live his life, but finds out the entire thing is all a lie. Everything he thinks he knows is made up. His life, his friends, even his memories are all to make him placid, so Diz in the shadowy figure can harvest his real memories for someone Roxas doesn't even know. Ultimately, this is all Roxas can do, as Axel, his only real friend, is being forced to kill him. In the end, Roxas can't even willingly choose to fade away. It's something he has to do, and he tries to accept it with some grace. But when you learn more of his backstory, you find Roxas has been used and manipulated his entire life, thrust into an unfair existence by the main character's good intentions. That's some pretty heavy stuff for a game where Mickey Mouse has main billing.
Whoa! Tickles.
How does the rest of the story stack up? Kingdom Hearts 2 narrative maintains the first game's overall lighthearted feel, but adds a crap ton of depressing implications. The main villain of the game, Organization 13, are nobodies, individuals whose souls were forcibly ripped from their bodies and are forced to walk the earth knowing they are no longer whole with no way to go back and will forever feel hollow and empty for the rest of their existence. But that's actually really sad when you just say it out loud. That is until they come up with the bright idea of using the MacGuffin Kingdom Hearts to restore themselves. The rub is, Sora and King Trademark locked it away, so they decide to make their own by tricking Sora into making a new one by slaying the oddly adorable Heartless to create it, which will allow them to restore their souls, or hearts in this case. So while the narrative portrays the majority of the organization members with cartoon villain levels of evil, the implication is that this is a group of lost individuals that are just trying to fill a void. If you think that sounds like a cult, take a look at this cutscene where their leader recruits Roxas.
You feel nothing. Nothing is real. I can give you purpose.
Sounds pretty frickin' culty. Now you could argue that it's because of that fleeting sense of emptiness that the nobodies can be radicalized into their more questionable actions. And yeah, some of them are revealed to be evil dickheads before they died, but at the time, we didn't know that. The game just frames them as misguided individuals trying to become whole again. Also, Sora's treatment of these individuals isn't the best.
Anyone from the organization who'd like to be next?
You freaking psychopath!
While the organization's goal is to create Kingdom Hearts, Sora is the one that's facilitating it by killing the Heartless, so his status as the righteous hero is a little less clear-cut. It's not just Sora who the story casts in a questionable light. Riku, Sora's life partner, is also here, and kidnaps Roxas, brainwashes him, and is ultimately the reason Roxas is forced to die. You know, for heroes, this is pretty questionable behavior, and I think it's why the game works narratively on such a better level. In the first game, there was no question that Sora was doing the right thing. The Heartless were mindless monsters that turn innocent people into dead-eye beasts, and the Disney villains just wanted to kidnap innocent women and rule the universe. Seriously, one of these asshats is literally just a Greek version of Satan, and the other is trying to murder kids. So of course there's no reason to challenge Sora's actions in Kingdom Hearts 1. Kingdom Hearts 2, on the other hand, is just a little less clear-cut, and as we said before, the organization just wants to be whole again. They just take morally dubious actions, which is why they're put into conflict with Sora. But it's Sora's treatment of the nobodies that calls into question his identity of the just hero. This theme of false identity is actually carried throughout the worlds you visit. Mulan pretending to be a man to join the army, Hercules being run ragged and maintaining his status as the invincible hero, Beast at risk of losing his true form forever, but in trying to claw it back, he's becoming more of the monster he appears to despise. Jack has become disillusioned with Halloween and tries to fill the void he feels creatively by trying to be Santa. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say. Iago wants to leave his villainy behind, but he's branded with doubt and mistrust for helping famed Disney sex pest, Jafar.
She's like 16, man, that's not cool.
Both Simba and Will are unable to accept their parents in some regard, and it leads to a head with the villains of their world. Tron is the best. Not like seriously, you know they get Bruce Boxleitner to play him anytime they do anything Tron related? It's great. Oh yeah, I guess there's like a lack of individuality for programs and space paranoids or something if we want to keep the analogy going. I'm not saying the story of Kingdom Hearts 2 is a groundbreaking narrative, but it creates a more engaging narrative with arguably better uses of its Disney worlds. It creates villains that they can do more with as their original characters, and they can be goofy, entertaining, and sometimes genuinely tragic. Hell, if Kingdom Hearts wasn't as confident in its storytelling, this moment wouldn't work.
Goofy! No!
Hey, you're the king's captain. You gotta get up.
Come on, wake up!
Isolated, this moment is more funny than upsetting, but when you've spent 2 games and an extra 20 hours with Goofy, who for some reason is the voice of reason in this trio. No, Donald, don't eat that. What if it has arsenic or hallucinogenics? This moment kind of works. It also helps that it quickly transitions into one of the coolest combat sections of the game, where you and half the Final Fantasy crew just beat the crap out of Heartless, featuring the 2 best Final Fantasy characters of all time.
Tifa's tits!
It's great, and it makes me wish that Kingdom Hearts 3 actually had some Final Fantasy involvement. You don't count, Remind, get the hell out.
I'll be anything you want me to be.
I want you to be dead!
Guys, look, I'm too deep in the swamp that is KH2 to be fair to judge it. Roxas is my favorite character in the whole series because he's so antithetical to its main ethos, with his inherently dismal existence, and it's a nice counterpoint to the ever-jovial Sora and his friends. When you fight him in the world that never was, he's desperately trying to regain his existence, clawing so hard to have a chance to live before he realizes why Sora is the better choice to save the world. It's not epic for the sake of it, there's a narrative reason that's bolstered by the mechanics of the game, which brings us to the reason I still play KH2 yearly, despite it being 10 years since I first picked it up: the combat. Now, like I said up top, the opening Kingdom Hearts 2 is a super informative tutorial. You learn combat, the reaction commands, and even do some mini games. Now, Roxas has the exact 3-hit combo as Sora in KH1. The difference is he just feels a little bit quicker. Enemies don't number nearly as much as in the previous game, and as the prologue reaches its finale, we get a tease for Kingdom Hearts' biggest change. Sora has a 4-hit combo and just feels way faster. As we leave Twilight Town behind, climb a tower, and meet Disney spelled backwards, we get the real innovation of Kingdom Hearts 2's combat system.
Don't hit the camera, man.
Dual wield!
As we saw at the end of the prologue, 2 Keyblades are better than 1, so after we get our brand new threads, we gain access to the Drive forms. Each of these comes in a different flavor of Super Saiyan, and each form drastically changes how Sora plays by changing up his abilities and stats. Valor is a full-on attack mode where you move fast and hit hard, but locks you out of spells. Wisdom allows you to fire magic and move at the same time, but it also turns Sora into a solely long-range fighter, meaning you can avoid a ton of enemy attacks by turning a sword into a gun.
Bang! Biggity bang! A bigger bang bang biggity biggity bang! And a shoot shoot shoot, put a bullet in your head. Bing bam boom, and he's effing dead!
Master combines the best of both forms and even lets you use an alternate version of some spells, like a multi-lightning strike. Also, popping any of these instantly refills the magic and health bars, and you can gain abilities which cause them to pop when you're low on health. Wow, Kevin, this combat system sounds really easy. I bet the enemies are a breeze.
Oh, okay. I didn't even have time to tell you how wrong you are. Actually, it's gonna bug me if I don't.
Note that I left out Limit and Final Form in my summary. That's because they're the only 2 forms without a major risk. You know in Bleach how sometimes Ichigo gets possessed by a demon? Oh, who am I kidding? Of course you do. We all watched Bleach. Well, Rage mode is the same anime-style evil mode. Character becomes feral, super powerful, with just a dash of evil, but it has some major drawbacks. Kingdom Hearts Rage mode, or anti-form, as it's called, is no different. Sora's range is drastically decreased, he can't use items or magic, and you can't exit it like you can regular forms. And the cherry on top of this poop sundae, it's completely random. Now, I know random number generation like this can be annoying, and yeah, this sucks, but there's an intention behind it. The game gives you the drive forms fairly early to help you deal with the tougher Heartless mobs and to grind, but you're not supposed to rely on it. The game constantly showers you with skills for base Sora to handle any situation, and some of the most climactic fights in the game specifically make the drive forms unusable. So if you're not taking the hint, of course the bosses are going to slap your cheeks. But it also reiterates the game's darker tones and the fact that Sora isn't infallible, but it does it within the confines of the game's mechanics. Now you may question why you use the other forms once you unlock Final and Limit. Well, each form has its own skill tree, and leveling them up gives Sora access to abilities usually reserved for that specific drive. Valor gives you a high jump, Wisdom gives Sora a dash for quickly dodging attacks and covering ground faster, Master Form gives you a double jump with invincibility frames, so you have a reason to want to keep these drives leveled. But there's another function I love that doesn't get near enough love, and I like to call it
Revenge counter!
One thing you may have noticed if you've watched high-level Kingdom Hearts 2 fights is they look spectacular. There's an ebb and flow to the combat. Now, Kingdom Hearts 1 had really good boss fights, but if you've played it after 2, you might notice something weird about the enemies. They don't quite react to your attacks like they maybe should. Take a look at Sephi here. Unlike in 1, Sephiroth reacts to your attacks. He flinches and it can break his combos, but after a certain point, the revenge counter kicks in and he fights back. If you're not ready for retaliation, you get punished. It gives combat this almost rhythmic nature, like one wrong move will spell death for you or your opponent. It's not just Sephiroth that has this. Xemnas, Demyx, Roxas, some of the most enjoyable boss fights in the game all use this system to its fullest. In fact, I'd argue the weaker boss fights are those in the game that don't account for the more reactive parts of the combat. I've seen a lot of people claim Kingdom Hearts 2 is just press X to win, but here's my counterpoint. Try any of the data battles on critical mode with that strategy and see how you get on. If you need any more proof that Kingdom Hearts 2 is a perfect sequel, look at the games that followed it. It's not that the following Kingdom Hearts games were all bad. Look at Birth by Sleep. This was on the PSP. It had 2 less buttons and 1 less analog stick, and it still worked. But I genuinely think that as Nomura prolonged the series, that a lot of the more interesting aspects of 2 were left behind. Kingdom Hearts 2 combined the original brevity found in the first game and injected much needed serious notes and questioned the actions of the main characters. Now, it doesn't succeed everywhere. Atlantis still sucks, and the Pride Land takes all your cool powers away for this. And a lot of the cooler stuff like leveling and revenge values aren't explained as well as they should be. But Kingdom Hearts 2 had a much more refined and exciting combat system. It's a shame that the series never really found its way back from this, and later games seem to actively remove the more interesting aspects of 2. But what do you guys think? Am I wrong? Does Kingdom Hearts 2 deserve to be the 13th best-selling game on the PS2 and still somehow manage to outsell Snake Eater? How? Or is it a series high? Let me know down below and give the video a like or dislike depending on how you feel, and subscribe to get Square Enix to port these games to the Vita. Come on guys, go for the hat trick. Twist the knife in on the only console you haven't beaten Kojima on. Don't forget to share the video around, tell your friends about it, and join us again for another video. Or watch one of these old ones, they're great, you'll love them, I swear.